I feel connection. Even as a DP shooting something narrative, and I know, you feel it, we all feel it. It's like you have a close up on an actor, and they like drop a performance, and like it connects, and you're like, oh, and you feel like you're in it, you're a part of it. And that sort of magic, like AI will never replicate, right?
Oh,
I think.
never. Hi, and welcome to Indie Chat episode 2. Today we're going to be talking with Steven Moreno, a really talented filmmaker and cinematographer. I had the extreme pleasure of working with him last year on a little feature film called The Stage. We had a great time on it. Today we have a really fun conversation about career paths, the projects that really bring out your passions. I think it's a great talk. I hope you stick around to the end. Thanks. Hey,
Okay.
Steven, thank you so much for coming and talking with me today. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I haven't really seen you since we were on the stage together. That was a while ago now.
I
How you
know.
doing?
I'm doing well, Quinn. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun working on the feature with you on the stage, and I feel like we shared some good times and some good collabs. So really cool that you're doing the show, and that I think that reaching out to like the filmmaking community and sharing stories and experience and guidance is a nice, fun way to sort of give back, right?
Right. I feel like everyone, they're at different points in their journey, and like especially just trying to get those first movies made when you're first trying to get your foot in the door. There's a lot of misinformation as much as anything else. So like people that this is what we do for a living, the more we can really just talk to each other, I feel like we can get information out there more.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of I don't want to say like mixed messages, but guidance isn't always so easy to come by, and everyone's situation as a filmmaker, I feel like is so different. Everyone's like journey is so unique
Oh
that
God, it's this career is so weird. Nobody's story is the same. Everyone has their own series of misadventures getting anywhere with it.
absolutely. And I think that that's a reason why it's so nice to get like as much as many different like perspectives and views from different people, because it's encouraging to kind of to people to find their own journey, and it also might answer people's questions as they're trying to figure things out.
100%. So, actually, on that topic, do you want to tell us a little bit about what brought you to where you're at? I know you work cinematography a lot still, but I know you've executive produced. So I'd love to hear more about your story.
Yeah, awesome. So I think that you want to start at you want me to start at the beginning, the tippy
Wherever
top.
feels good. Yeah, like I'd love to hear how you first broke in, but like whatever feels comfortable, man. I'd love to hear it.
Sure. Okay. So my journey is pretty unique, I think, because I started my journey as an actor.
I
My
didn't know
first,
that.
yeah, when I was, like a junior-ish in college, without a lot of direction, I knew I wanted to do something in entertainment, but it was a long time ago, and entertainment wasn't really a thing. It wasn't a box you could check on career day. Like it was not. I don't want to age myself too much, but in the fucking early 90s, man, it's like there wasn't like, I'm going to go be a filmmaker. And I wanted to be a storyteller. I knew I wanted to be a storyteller. And I had met some actors. I was in New Jersey, and I was waitering at a restaurant in Hoboken, which is like borders Manhattan. And all suddenly I like had met all of these actors, and I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is really a thing that you could do for a living. And I ended up becoming good friends with some actors, and they're like, yeah, come to New York, like we can get you an agent. And I literally like dropped out of college and got an agent and a headshot, and like I started auditioning and ended up with a manager and an agent. And it brought me, I spent like 3 years in Manhattan as an actor, and I like did a bunch of commercials, and like I did a couple of national commercial spots. Ended
Wow.
up like coming out to LA, screen testing for like Dawson's Creek, which was like the big show at the time. And
That that's a really big deal getting a screen test for Dawson's Creek at that time.
yeah, and when you screen test for a show, you have like a signed contract, like
Oh,
Yeah,
I
like you're
didn't know
like,
that you actually like before even doing the screen test, you had to sign a contract.
yeah, screen test means you're down to the final, like maybe three or four people. And like
Oh
everyone
wow.
has a deal already in place. So they like make a decision. And obviously I didn't get the role,
I mean, it's
but
still a great story,
oh,
even not
it
getting the
was
role.
amazing. Yeah, it got me really like it got me to LA, and then I ended up with like a manager that was Katie Holmes' manager at the time. And management was great, and my first like kind of one of my first, and then I came out to LA for pilot season, and I booked like my first movie, and I was like playing Nev Campbell's boyfriend in like a feature that was at Sundance. And I did a show with Lauren Graham like right before Gilmore Girls. Like I played opposite her character's daughter. So I was like the love interest of one of the leads who was like actually her niece, a show called MYOB. And like I did a pilot with Aaron Paul and Katie Sackhoff. Like, so I had a really interesting run as an actor.
I
And
mean, that sounds like you're right on the edge of fully arriving.
I think I was, but everything happens for a reason. So they say. So
What
I
inspired
keep
the
telling
shift
myself.
over?
Well, I think things changed and I got slow and it was hard to get work. And I always wanted to direct. I always wanted to be a storyteller. I just thought like acting was kind of my way in. But somehow I ended up really loving cameras. And at the time, like camera technology was getting better, I guess, as it still is. And I ended up like with a camera and started shooting my own stuff, even back then, even in like the early 2000s, I was starting to shoot a bunch of my own content and like really trying to like write and direct. Ended up as a focus puller, like a first AC, and underneath a really talented DP. And then I started to understand imaging, like and lighting and like framing and telling a story visually. And that sort of led me on an accidental sort of cinematographer path, which I absolutely adore and love like that. But I don't think that was ever really my foundationally like what I wanted to do as a storyteller. I think it was a bit of a and I still work a lot as a cinematographer as a DP, and I think it's a wonderful job, and I absolutely love it. But I want to do more as a storyteller. Like I want to explore the nuance of like text and subtext and like performance and things that you hide and things that you show and things that you misdirect and surprising the audience with twists and turns of story, like all of that stuff you don't get to really play with much as a DP. And I think as a director and a writer, I'm trying to like flesh out that side of storytelling a lot more.
So
Um,
really the character side of things, like really diving into characters, that's what gets you really excited.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, I'm fascinated kind of by human nature and like what makes us tick and like what motivates us and the way people can like change and do, a human being can do like amazing things and then also like terrible things and sometimes in the same moment, and I think that's super fascinating. So I think my ultimate journey, and I think where I really would love to be is like a narrative director. I love to be directing feature films and that's kind of my path. And it's honestly like I can't not like steer my ship towards that even though our industry is all weird and fucked up right now. I can't like
It's
I just
such a
haven't.
hard time.
It's a hard time. I know. No, it's the worst time.
I think we're in similar places there where so much of what I really care about is also it's narrative. Like I love working narrative stuff, but it's really hard to make a living doing narrative work. But like feels like most of the money is honestly in corporate work at the moment, which is just no one gets excited about corporate work.
No, absolutely. In fact, it's funny. I would rather be a cinematographer for corporate work because an image is an image sometimes, right? It's like
Yeah.
lighting and crafting an image and framing an image and a shot and camera tech and all these things that I love. Like I love equally if I'm shooting the CEO of a company. Well, maybe not, but I can find value as a cinematographer in almost anything I do because an image in and of itself is the thing I'm trying to craft that I love, right? Whereas like being a director, I don't know if I want to direct like a corporate thing. Like I don't think I'd rather DP a corporate thing, right? Because I
Oh
can
no,
just
dude,
shoot it.
I'm in the same page. Like I have no problem designing for corporate. I've designed for corporate because like end of the day, they usually also have money to toss at things to make it look nice. But like when you're directing something like that, so often you're not directing, you've got three people telling you what they want, and you're vaguely trying to direct it in some direction, but you have no control over anything.
Absolutely. You're just really kind of like like keeping client happy, managing client expectations, and real funneling information to the rest of the crew, which
You're
actually
basically
gets me.
field producing more than anything else.
Exactly. So yeah, so I feel like the corporate gigs are I'm grateful. We're all grateful for the work.
Yeah.
But the creative side of me that burns to like tell stories and connect with people. I think it's about connection. I feel like in narrative storytelling, I feel connection. Even as a DP shooting something narrative, and I know, you feel it, we all feel it. It's like you have a close up on an actor and they like drop a performance and like it connects and you're like, oh, and you feel like you're in it, you're a part of it. And that sort of magic like AI will never replicate, right?
Oh,
I think
never, never. There's that just utter magic of that moment that that actor is just in the track. They figure that character out, and everyone just is afraid to breathe because they don't want to be the person to wreck it. And it's like it's the best side of theater, and you're putting on a film forever. And if everything goes right, you've made something just utterly magical out of it.
absolutely true. And my mentor, my mentor Rob Webb said a beautiful thing to me when I was a young lad pulling focus for him. He said, that there's all this like action and all these things, and then and all this like chaos and like everyone's working and collaborating and trying to. But once the director calls action, it's really like the actor and whoever's operating that camera that are like living at that moment and like performing and dancing, right? And then once it's like cut, then like everyone comes out and fixes things and everyone like comes alive. But like during that moment between like action and cut, it's the only things alive really is the actor and the camera, maybe the sound, but you know we
Yeah.
leave sound for everything. No, I love our sound mixers, but there's a sound departments in the dance too. But it ruins the romance of the story. It's the actor and it's the camera, and they're dancing and they're live between action and cut. And I think like there's really like an exhilarating feeling that I get that I keep chasing. It keeps
Oh,
me
I
back.
feel like it's there's moments that I have experienced on set that like they make all of the pain utterly worth it. And like it's a couple moments on any given project. It's not the whole project. There will be maybe two moments that are just gorgeous that make it all worth it. And if you get those moments, all the pain just kind of fades away and you forget about it all right then.
Absolutely agree, man. And it's just a couple of moments, but they're enough to keep you coming back. Like, yeah, I went through a phase where I surfed quite a bit, and it's just like, you you chase this wave, and it's really hard to catch a wave. And you finally catch one, and it sucks you in, and you feel like you're flying, and you're just like, oh my god, and that will keep you coming back, chasing that wave, chasing that high, like for month that one wave will keep you coming back for months and months and months, and it's a similar thing on film. In film yeah, you connect for this one magical moment, and like, yeah, you're just chasing that dragon.
No, it absolutely it's the best high in the world and
Yeah,
no one can argue with that.
for sure. For sure. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I guess I did. I started off as an actor, brought me to Los Angeles. Things got kind of fucked up in my career and slow, and I probably had some demons to sort of deal with myself, which I chalk up to life and character lessons, and ended up on this side of the camera. And since then, I think my journey has been really interesting. I've worked with like really, I've managed to work with some really amazing people. I think I've worked with wonderfully talented people, but I still feel like I'm just scratching the surface of it all. Like I did a Zoe Deschanel, like, docu series called Your Food's Roots. And I did like a Kevin Hart series for like Old Spice, like a scripted sort of branded show about like called The Writer's Room. And I shot Angelina Jolie for a thing, and I know I'm name dropping a lot, but I've really like kind of done some really fun stuff that I'm super proud of. I shot like a call to action with Van Jones, like for a vote, like a political call to action with like Kim Kardashian and Jamie Foxx and Chelsea Handler, and like that was super exciting, super cool. But again, I still feel like I'm just kind of scratching the surface of being like a filmmaker and a storyteller in some ways, you know?
Sorry to interrupt, but if you're liking this content so far, consider giving it a like, a subscribe, and ringing that bell. We have new episodes coming every Friday. I feel like the thing that I tell people a lot, and some people get it, some people don't. I think you get it. There's no better film school in the world than working on a crew. You
Absolutely.
learn so much because also a director who just directs, they can add up on one hand how many days they're on set in a given year. If you're a DP, if you're a production designer, if you're anything below the line, especially, the number of days you're on set compared to any director or producer is just, there is no comparison. So you learn so much. And everyone I know that came up from crew, the the amount of just pure filmmaking knowledge that you get there, you move better. You know what you want. You don't waste as much time on the decision making process because it's not really a question. You know what you want, and you have a much better idea of how to direct a large group of people to do it because you've been a part of that symphony for so long. You understand what all the notes are, and you understand how to shape it better.
100%. And I realized that somewhere in the beginning of my DP making journey that oftentimes, like, though the director is the storyteller and we are there to support the director, it sometimes becomes very obvious that, we have a lot more set experience because a director is like, even for a narrative, right? They're in pre-production for, they're writing a story or like working with the writers for years, sometimes casting, and then pre-production is months. They're on set for 17 shoot days, usually for a
If
few,
they're lucky.
if they're lucky, and then right 14 to 17 shoot days, and then they spend like 4 months in post, maybe with the stage a year or two, and then they maybe they get another film a year later, 2 years later, like. And not to discredit them, it's just like a director's world is like a director has to like shepherd a project from inception sometime, usually, but through delivery, like at least they should, I think that's the direct. And then the beauty of like being a DP or being a production designer is that like once it's like once you wrap the project, like you're gone, you pack up and you go to the next one. For us, sometimes for DP, we'll be a part of color correction, or we should at least be invited to the color correction
Oh,
party.
completely agree. And actually, that's an argument I've been trying to make more for production design, getting invited to the VFX stage, like getting more involved with that. Because I do VFX soup and more VFX post work these days. And I feel like because of the disconnect that happens there, the more you can get involved during the production and be involved in post, stuff goes so much smoother. And it's the same with DP. The more you have involvement with that color correction, you know what you shot it for. You understand what the idea was. So, like, if the color correction isn't working, you have a better idea of how to fix it than the color corrector is.
Absolutely, and production designers should have their hands in that pot, in the VFX and the post production at least, for sure, because it's such a collaborative medium, and it takes a village, as they say, and it really does. It's
Absolutely, it takes a village.
a lot of folks. So yeah, I think that we're fortunate to be able to get out there and do it and work together and collab. But having experience as a DP and being on set as much as I get to be only helps shape my path as a producer and a director.
That's awesome, man.
Mhm.
So, I see you've got a couple of projects that you've been like executive producer on. Do you want to talk about those a little bit? Like, what went into getting your first projects off the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most recently, I think we shot the stage together, but I wasn't a producer technically on that.
I was
Um,
gonna ask you actually because I remember you knew the guys pretty well, but it seemed like you weren't necessarily like an actual producer on that one.
Not officially. It's funny. I really think that a DP, though technically is below the line, but I think a cinematographer really kind of is the line. Um,
I
and
have to agree with you there. I do actually.
and I think a production designer too. I think a DP and a production designer both are really the line. I feel like we don't have to do as much politicking. We tend to sometimes get paid where a director might be like a passion project. A director's not going to get paid where a DP almost always gets paid, even though if I believe in a project and I like the people and the thing, and I think it's a story that needs to be told, and I think if I think it's a story that has legs, like I will sometimes jump on and do something for free, and that's
See,
a lot of work, you
that is a
know.
lot of work, but I will actually say that is one line that I've actually encouraged a lot of people for with production design. Generally speaking, production design is the only department you just can't do that because of the amount of physical cash involved with running art department. Unless you're
Mm.
like someone that has like that absolute hoarding tendency of everything's in your garage and you just happen to have everything you need. Generally speaking, art doesn't work for less than 10K all in on art. Like it's just one of those things of like you need a certain number of bodies and you need just a certain amount of cash involved before it really becomes viable. And once you're below that, it's almost better just not to even have an art department and just put the money in places where it's going to speak.
That's interesting. Do you think that art department, if you were to budget for like a micro budget, because that's kind
Mhm.
of my world, and we'll talk about that in a second, but like,
Yeah,
do you think a micro budget feature, say, is like 10,000 kind of bottom line? Because there's like guidelines. Post is like 1/3 of your budget, generally speaking, right? It's like, do you think that like there's a number, a magic number that like
there is.
what you
The magic number is supposed to be 10%. Uh, in micro budget usually turns into 20 to 30% for it to be viable.
okay, because the
Uh,
budget's so low that the ratio changes,
the
right?
ratio just changes. If you're on like $100 million feature, 10% is like almost borderline standard these days.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely, it depends. Are you doing like a massive sci-fi piece? Are you doing a drama where it's all dressing? Like, there's factors that alter that a lot. Like something like The Stage, the budget was pretty tight, but so much of that was just move around stuff on location as opposed to like bringing in huge set pieces. If you're building, that changes stuff. But like, what I usually tell people, and this is what I do when I'm producing, if there's like an actual budget involved, is immediately put 10% in there. And if 10% just isn't viable, usually that means you don't have the money to do a dedicated art department. And so, like, at that point, it's more about having someone that's just zhuzhing existing stuff. So it's more like having a set dresser than really having like a production designer. And like at that point, it's you're finding pre-existing locations that have everything you need. Bring in the couple of things yourself that you absolutely need for the shots, but like dedicated art department, it's just the amount of prep time that goes into it. There just has to be a certain amount of money on the table because of how many people get involved with it.
That makes sense. And that's interesting because like talking big picture, like producing features, say micro budget features, which might be the future. Vertical video, there's going to be vertical video, which is taking over kind of in some ways, micro budget features and Marvel movies. Like there's that, it's going to be, the middle class might be going away in film, and in maybe our country, but that's a different conversation.
That was a different conversation that could get very lengthy.
That's a
I
different
have a
show. That's a
counter.
different show.
Uh, Uh, actually, I agree with you on micro budget. Seems like it's the future right now, and verticals are massively taking over, and they're like almost becoming what Hallmark Channel was years ago in terms of like that's really becoming the proving ground for up and coming crew to get on bigger stuff. But like there are whispers with a number of producers that I know that the mid budget might not be as dead as it feels like it is right now. Like right now it is. It's utterly dead. But that like 10 to 30 range
Mm.
might come back in a couple years because of how unviable 90 to 120 is becoming at the box office. And like I feel like we're in this inflection point where either we're going to shift to nothing but like 200 plus, or we're going to kind of start seeing a bunch of like 20 to 30 start hitting the marketplace again. I'd be really interested to see it because like right now, max seems to be about 2.5 for most features that I'm seeing around. And like that's viable for an okay crew. Like you can pay people on that. But like it's not going to be nearly what most directors think they're getting for 2.5.
Perspective, money is relative, right? It's like so I think the least amount of money. Okay, so a couple of conversations I've had recently, like what's the least amount of money you can make a feature for, right? Now,
That's an excellent conversation right there
right
because that's a
now,
big question.
and I think there's a few different ways to look at it depending on, most importantly, your actors, right? If you want like really like working actors, you have to do SAG. There's kind
Yeah.
of like no way around SAG. Um, and I think that you have to do a SAG modified low budget or something, which even if you make a feature for $20,000, I think you can't sell it like unless it's a certain tier, and which means that you have to like show payroll. So you can't 1099 people. You can't just like write crew a check. Now, say you're trying to like bootstrap something. You're like, hey, I'm going to shoot a feature in my house, right? My own personal house. I don't need permits. My crew is my friends. I don't need to pay crew. Like, I'm just going to use actors that are non-union, because generally union actors won't do non-union work.
No,
Generally,
100%, because they can get completely, they're brought up in front of the board. It's a whole thing. It's a
yes.
headache.
Whereas the rest of us can all generally directors are a little strict about it too. But I'm a union DP, right?
I'm a union designer. 99% of what I do is non-union, and nobody gives a fuck because nobody's working enough union projects to care.
Same, exactly. And even when things are busy, generally IATSE 600 at least, which is the cinematography, like the camera union, right? Cinematographers Guild. They don't generally, I think, I don't want to say they don't care, but you're fine to do non-union work, I think. For
I guess saying that for 800 is also maybe not the best way to put it. It's more they understand you need to make a living, and they're not trying to limit your ability to actually pay your rent.
exactly. But I think the DGA, Directors Guild, and SAG-AFTRA.
Oh, they care. Both of them care so much. I've heard stories.
So if you want union actors, which is, I don't want to say any actor that's good has to be union, but generally speaking, a working actor is a union actor. And generally speaking, a good actor or a great actor is a working-ish actor, hopefully.
Also, there's the argument of if you want a saleable actor that's going to help you actually sell the movie, there's no way they're not SAG.
That's a whole SAG means you have to do 80 pages of paperwork, right? I don't know if it's 80, but it's a lot.
It's something like that. And also, remind me, is it 20% of SAG payroll or 20% of overall payroll?
I don't know, but I know for us, I don't remember, but I don't want to talk about the budget of Sour. We'll talk about Sour Party.
No, yeah.
But yeah, I remember that it amounted to being about 10% of our budget.
Oh, so they brought it down a little bit because I remember last time I was budgeting something for SAG, I think it was like 2025 was
But
the
that was our
but
total
also
budget. So I don't know
okay.
how that our budgeting was a little wonky. I could explain. So let me kick this off and
Sure.
say, so I did a feature. I executive produced and was cinematographer on a feature film that we shot maybe 3 years ago called Sour Party. It's a really great little movie. I'm really proud of it.
It looks really fun, by the way. Like I was looking at the footage from it. It looks like it's a really fun piece.
Thank you so much. It's really a wonderful little project. The directors are a married couple, the Drextons, Michael and Amanda. They co-directed, they co-wrote, they co-edited. Amanda is the co-star, and she's wonderful. She does a wonderful job in it. I'm really proud of it. It was scrappy and it was challenging in a lot of ways. The vibes were generally pretty good, but I came on. I EP'd it. I DP'd it. My partner, my girlfriend Elisa, also EP'd it, and she did the SAG paperwork. She wasn't really on set much. She was on set a little bit here and there. We actually shot on my property a bunch, like we use a lot of sets in my house. But Elisa, she did a ton of work. She did the SAG paperwork. She did the payroll because you have to run payroll for SAG. She did call sheets. She did like the meals, and she did some of the scheduling. Michael and Amanda kind of did everything else. We ended up getting Corey Feldman and Reggie Watts.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And we learned a lot about about the name game, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think it was 17 shoot days in total. We had a very small, scrappy crew. Our production designer named Lala came from Kentucky. Our lead actress, Sammy, she is from Kentucky. So she goes way back with Lala. Lala drove out from Kentucky, kind of donated her time to the production design. She did a killer job. Lala's awesome, super talented. And it was a really beautiful experience. It's about two kind of kind of shitty white millennial girls that are LA creatives that kind of have failed at every potential like possible get rich quick scheme, and they're like trying to get $250 for a baby shower gift, and they're basically driving around LA like on a list of like people that might owe them money. And one of them is like Corey Feldman, who now is a cult leader, though he's not playing himself. Though I thought he should be playing himself, but that's a whole other
That's a
conversation.
whole other conversation. That would
He's
have
like,
been
I'm not playing
hilarious.
myself. Yeah, it was a whole other conversation. I probably shouldn't say it in an interview. But Corey actually is awesome, wonderful, and like he's kind of like he was a movie star when I was a little kid, and he's like my age, and I was always like, it was very cool. Like again, I've worked with a lot of famous folks, and like, and it's always amazing and unfortunate. But working with Corey was a little extra special, just because like Goonies was like a thing when I was a kid, and Stand By
Um,
Me and Lost Boys,
dude,
like sort of iconic movies.
I grew up with every single one of those films. Like Corey Feldman was like the dude when you were a kid.
Yeah, I really, it was kind of a great honor to work with Corey, honestly. And he brought a very wacky character to the table, which I was like, this is fun. I mean, it's out there, but he was having fun with it, and he hasn't acted really in a big thing in a while. And I think getting Corey was interesting. Michael, the one of the directors, shot and edited videos for him like 10 years ago. And we're talking about casting. He was like, and he kind of brought it up as a joke. He's like, well, I could, I have Corey's Feldman's number. I did video. I was like, what? I was like, yes, absolutely call Corey Feldman, like get him. And suddenly it's like, well, Corey's kind of interested. And like, we had to pay him a little bit, but not, we had to shoot a music video for him. So I shot one of his music videos, which was a fun experience, also interesting experience. All in all, the experience with Corey though was really really great. And Reggie Watts is a gem of a human being, and super wonderful and brilliantly talented. And so those two guys were important, and we learned this. We knew this. This. You name act like to get distribution, the distribution game. It's a whole. There's a whole journey, but it's like getting in good festivals and getting name actors, like financing and distribution, right? Those are the pieces of the puzzle that I don't have. I can make a movie. You can make a movie. We know
Yeah.
we can write. We know what stories about. We know how to craft images. We know about cameras. We know about post. We know about the whole physical process of movie making. But like the gatekeeping is really like the financing and the distribution. The beginning and end of the journey are the like we don't like those are the
It's the black magic of filmmaking that like either you know the couple people that will help you get it done, or you're kind of just banging your head against a wall. And it doesn't matter how good you are at making a movie, if you don't have that first block and you don't have that last block, you're kind of out of luck.
exactly. And
Like, I will actually say though, the last block is getting a little bit easier by like 2%, in that there are some sources that are caring a little bit less about the name talent, and there are some producers that are willing to potentially help you get on like low end streamers. You're not going to make money doing this, but like you might be able to like get something out there without too much star talent to kind of like help you spring something else that would get there. But that's a whole
absolutely.
other conversation.
No, and I love it. And I've been deep diving into the film hub world, because like I have three projects on my slate right now that I am trying to fund, and I'll talk about them in a second. But the things that I have learned is the beginning and the end of the process. And it's funny. It feels like the people that have the money in the distribution, like sometimes like they're not really good filmmakers. They're not really good storytellers. Like it's just the balance of life. It's like you're a good storyteller, you're a good filmmaker, but like we're not gonna like give you money or like access to distribution, or like I have money and access, but I suck. It's like choose one. I don't know. I want it all. Maybe I'm greedy, but you're absolutely right. And I would love to chat with you either on this show or in a personal convo about
Oh,
distribution.
definitely. Yeah, because I'm kind of moving my way towards that, and like my project, I'm at least a year or two out from distribution on it.
Yeah,
And so like I'm having some interesting conversations with a few people that are too early to talk about in a public setting.
absolutely, absolutely.
But
But I love
uh the broad thing that I've been seeing is like a Film Hub is legitimately a thing right now. And if
it.
you
Mhm.
make something at a high enough quality, you can get it on certain streamers. So like places like Tubi are getting harder. everyone agrees like Tubi's getting really hard to get on because it was such a gold mine for a minute. But there's also like this whole weird growing YouTube market of like YouTube is suddenly considered a streamer and like they seem like they're taking a huge market share. And it's almost seeming like it's a valid move to get like a famous YouTuber as your talent instead of it necessarily being like a SAG actor. And like it's a weird time there, but if you can be the person to figure that out, there's potential for something really interesting there. I'm not saying I'm figuring that out, just like I'm observing there's like new things happening that are really hard to predict where it's going to go over the next couple of years.
I absolutely, yeah, no, I love that this conversation, and I've been kind of doing the same thing. I actually had a great, I don't, it's too early for me to say, but I had a great meeting with the manager of original content of one of the streamers just a few weeks ago through an old producer contact of mine, and it was very hard to get the meeting. Like
Yeah,
everyone,
it's so hard
every,
to get those meetings. And it's pure luck. Like I know people that have gotten like big name meetings. It usually comes off of you caught the right person at the right party when they had the right number of drinks in them, and you happen to slide into an open spot on their calendar. It
yes.
doesn't mean that it's going to go anywhere, but like at least you got
So
in the room, and that's better.
so for me, a producer that I've known for like 20 years that has successfully sold a lot of unscripted shows. So he was like a reality TV producer, but mostly like a pitch guy and very good at it. Not really a physical filmmaker, but again, he came up in like worked at William Morris in the mailroom. Came up the old. That's how everyone came up, as you know. Like,
Oh, that was the way to
that
become
was
a
the way.
producer back in the day. Like William Morris, mailroom, up to being a
Yeah.
deal maker. That was the trajectory if you wanted to produce.
Yep, absolutely, and that's how he came up, and he knows everybody because of it, and he ended up. And I've shot real. I've known him for a long time. I've shot reality sizzles for him a lot, and produced a lot, and produced and directed a few for him. But that's not really reality. Is not really my world, and it's fine, but it's kind of going away, as you know. Reality
It's a
TV's kind of
it's
gone.
a weird time
Yeah.
for the reality people right now because like it was never my world. Like I was a commercial guy and I watched commercials disappear. Like that was like I came up through the whole commercial side, which is dead now too. But like reality, it seems like overnight it went like they just completely dropped
And
out.
and I think it's because of like TikTok and Instagram stories and YouTube, like and maybe it's an aging out. Maybe the people that watch, like obviously the Kardashians, like the biggest shows are still around, most of them. But
But at
like
this point,
these
they're
new,
legacy, so like it's they're
yeah,
in their own stratosphere
yeah,
in terms of the interest on them.
yeah. And I think if you have like if you get A-listers, if you went to pitch like, hey, I've got like 10 A-list celebrities, you get it, you get a show for that, a reality show.
Oh, definitely. Especially like Netflix still throws money at the right reality shows if they think it's got like potential and a few other places too. But like you do really have to be in that like harder hitting, it's really likely this is gonna get like a good market share type of size.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that like his connections, my friend's connections, he knows everybody in the unscripted world, but very few people in the scripted world.
Yeah,
And
they're so separate, like their own things.
they're their own department. And finally I was like, hey, can you get us a meeting with scripted at this streamer? And he did, and it went very well. And I sent them a slate. And I can tell you a little bit about the slate. I have a Christmas movie with Ronda Rousey right now that I've
Oh,
attached to direct, which is really fun, really interesting. It's like family friendly. It's like she's an action kind of super spy that's like,
that's fun, man. Like
yeah,
that
that
that actually has like so much potential to have legs right now too. Like of things to pitch. That's a really good one.
thank you, and I'm excited about it. And it's got me in a lot of doors, and like those doors have opened. And then I have my own movie called Frogtown, which is about like a coming of age story of a Latino artist in a gentrifying neighborhood of Frogtown in Los Angeles. And he's like on his trying to get out of kind of this neighborhood through like a scholarship because he's a really bright kid. But he gets pulled into the orbit of gang life, and kind of because of a girl and some money goes missing in a sideways robbery, and he ends up with the money but nobody really knows, and he ends up with the girl, and he ends up in the gang, and he's trying to get out with the money and the girl, and he kind of gets pulled deeper and deeper, and then he gets betrayed. And it's a really fun, I'm very very excited about it. I'm working really hard on it. It's kind of my baby, so I'm using sort of this covert Christmas, this Ronda Rousey's movie, sort of as a door opener. Though I want to do them, I want to make them both.
You
One,
need to be passionate about the door opener, but like having a project that is a commercial project that's very likely to have the right people looking at it's a great idea. I frankly, I need to work on more projects like that because like I have a few scripts that could be that for me, but they're not developed enough for me to like really take them out yet.
And it's, yes, and I totally get it, and it's the name game again. It's like
Yeah.
attack, and the way that you get financing and distribution essentially is the name game, and that could be, that famous actors, but also, as you mentioned, influencers, YouTubers, like people with big following, like they I know that Tubi had some success with like a young adult like rom-com that was like fronted by a bunch of influencers, so like
Yep.
there's value there too. um
The main problem
it's
with those that I've been hearing, and I don't mean this at all in like a negative light to the people involved, is I'm gonna find the way to say this correctly so that it doesn't sound bad.
Careful.
The main problem that I've heard with doing those films is often you have to schedule more time because you're dealing with people that,
Performances.
yeah,
Yes.
they haven't necessarily gotten the same amount of time to shape how to get a performance fast. So like
Yes.
a 17-day feature might be more like a 48-day feature. And that's
Wow.
not because the person isn't getting there. It's just they might need a little more time to get there. They might need a little bit more rehearsal time, like just things like that that you have to take into account. But also you might not have as many high ticket actors involved. So like the budget could balance out a little bit on it depending on how you work the numbers too.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and also a lot more work as a director. Like, I don't know, I've worked with a lot of directors, and I feel like oftentimes they're, how do I say this delicately? Worked with a lot of directors, and I don't see a lot of performance like direction like often. I feel like it's just like the actor brings the thing to the table, and the director's like, great, action, cut, moving on.
Actually, on that topic, and
Yeah.
we'll stay in the this is all meant in a very not derogatory light in any way. Let's just
Yeah.
we'll put that over this whole thing that we're saying right now.
Yes.
I do feel like modern directors don't emphasize shaping your performance the same way that older directors do. Because like guys I know from the 80s, the 70s, they would work on shaping the performance. Whereas I feel like now the focus is more towards like shaping the physical movement and leaving the shaping of the performance to the actor. And I'm not saying like one is necessarily better than the other, but it's definitely something I've noticed that like the younger up and coming directors, I feel like the focus is kind of like it's shifted away from really having the collaboration be on the performance of the character, and it's more about like I need you to hit these beats. How you want to hit those beats is up to you.
And I think it's a give and take. I think directing actors is its own art, but I think
Oh God, yes.
it's a little bit of a lost. I don't want to say it's a lost art, but I think definitely like the directors that we grew up with, the legends. I think were directors that were really shaping performance and story. But I think if you can be one of those directors, right, if you can work with actors and speak their language and give them direction that they can use that help guide a performance and tell the story in the way you want, and you can do that successfully, actors will want to work with you, like
Oh, 100%, because then
like
you become
it's,
an actor's director, and
yeah.
like actors they want to collaborate. It's not like they are going to get upset at you for saying like, "No, I need this performance to feel this way." They want you to talk to them. They want you to have that conversation. If you're being an asshole about it, yeah, they're going to get pissed off at you. But like the whole point of directing is you're supposed to be directing this arc of the
Yes.
story, and like the performance is the arc of the story. And like I will fully admit I'm not sure I always hit that mark either myself, but it's like that's the thing you need to like as a director. I feel like that's the thing you should be pursuing more than anything else, is like how to like learn that language as well as possible.
That's exactly right. It's story is about change, right? Story is about tracking a character as a character changes, right? And I think that like a director needs to know those beats. And sure, you want your actor to be free to do their thing, but you have to be the keeper of the vision as the director. You have to steer the vision if it goes off track. If it's on track, I guess you let it be. You
Yeah.
support it, you nourish it. You're empathetic. It's all exploration. It's all
And
empathetic
exploration,
exploration.
that's the other thing too, is like I personally feel exploration should be like a huge part of it, because if you just put your foot down like, no, I need this emotional beat right here, that can be very restrictive and it might not be the right movie either. Like get a take of that thing in case that turns out to be what you need. But like,
Was about to say that I love options. I think
yes,
think it's important for a director, like if you're going to have a scene, like think about different ways it'll cut together and think about different choices you can make. And like I love improv too, but if you improv on one side of a conversation, you have to match it on the other side. If two people are talking to each other and one person is off script, you what are you cutting to? Like they need to talk to each other. So you need to either have two cameras on it, or you need to have a good script supervisor that is tracking what's being said and knowing which takes you like I like that take, I like that line. And I think a great safety is like, hey, let's do one close to the script, let's get it, and then like do your own thing in your own words, right?
I
And I
also
think
really like
that's
doing that method because then also it usually gives you better spots to tie the two performances together. Because like maybe you'll have like the front side that ties together and then they go off on something. You can find a spot that it cuts nicely, and maybe it'll be like they have a part of improv that like works better in the conversation than the actual written dialogue, and you just kind of like start cutting that in indifferently. Like
absolutely, yeah.
you can start shaping in post a lot more than you'd expect.
And I think it's always great to have a plan. Like planning is so important. Have a plan, and then if you're really prepared, then you can go off the rails because you'll know exactly where you are at all times. Like for Frogtown, my mentor and my DP and I have like we're meeting at 7 today. Like we
Oh,
have
that's great.
like yeah, like we're just scratching the surface of like I'm still have many drafts of the script to go, but we have every Saturday night we meet for like 2 to 3 hours, and we usually do like literally one scene at this pace. It's going to take us a long time, but hopefully we'll get faster. But we do like one scene. We like break down a scene, like almost like we're not storyboarding it, but we're talking about the meaning. We're talking about like the character, like we see the sunset, they're sitting on the thing, we come around, he's speaking, and basically his chin is in focus while she's listening. We're on focus on her. And then it's like, let's get a safety coverage of him as well. But like we're shaping the creative storytelling. Like we're not really making a shot list, but we're making broad strokes of what the shot list is going to become. Because eventually, when we get into like making this movie, we want to know it so well that it's like, oh, scene 7, yeah, that's this. Like, that's this happens. Like, and these are the beats of that scene, and these are like the kind of special shots of that scene, and this is the emotional arc of that scene, and this is why that scene's important because like this is his turning point, right? Like these are things that like you want to know like the back of your hand. So preparation is everything, and the more prepared you are, the more you can go off the rails, the more you can be free to improvise in literal and metaphoric ways because you know your story, you know your beats, you know your characters, you know your world, and now let's make something different and let's throw it all away and like make whatever happens in this moment happen.
I love that. I really love that because I feel like planning is where, especially in lower budget filmmaking, planning is where everything gets tossed out the window. And like the project I just made, I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece. I'm making what I can out of what it was. It was a 7-day shoot, but like I had about 2 months to plan the entire thing. I only had a finished script for about the past last couple of weeks. So what it really came down to was me just really having every single beat of every single day planned of I absolutely have to get these shots or the day's not going to work. And then I knew what I could lose and what I couldn't lose on those days. And if I didn't have that, I never would have gotten the movie shot because I was camera operating, I was doing like 50% of the script supervising and directing. And between all of that, your mind is going so many different directions. If you don't have everything planned out and like locked in to a degree, you're never going to make your days. And I feel like a lot of people underestimate how important the planning stage actually is. Like, I think that's one of the things working below the line, working crew, you really understand the planning, the scheduling, the freaking spreadsheets are really what makes or breaks every day of shooting. And if you're not willing to do that work, the fun work ends up not working out.
You're exactly right. You sacrifice the fun work if you don't do the busy work. And I think the busy work for me eventually, like, it eventually I find like some kind of bliss in it. Like it's like tedium at first, but after I dig into the spreadsheets and like the planning stuff, sometimes is a little like it's daunting in the beginning, which makes me want to procrastinate. But once I dig into it, like I get obsessed. Like I'll send you my pitch deck for Frogtown.
Oh, I would love to see that. I
Yeah,
love looking at pitch decks because I feel like I have the crappiest pitch decks in town. So like anytime I see someone else's, I'm like, okay, how did you do it? Because I feel like it has to be better than how I did it.
I it's not easy for everyone to be able to like to do it, and everyone has the skill set or the resources. But since I also I figured if I put the time in, it also like helped me like tune into the story more. Like I know
Oh, 100%.
what my story is, and I know what it feels like, and then like my DP and I are like sharing the images back and forth, and he's like, "Oh, that's dope," and like we start to like develop a style, and and then I start to like dig more into like, well, what do I want this scene to look like? What does that scene look like? So it becomes a part of the sometimes like the research and the prep are like what help you like form the creative, like really like you form the creative as you dig into the preparation, you know.
Yeah. I, I I really like that actually because I do feel the more you do the prep, the more you start just diving into fine minutia that you would have skipped over without it. But that minutia is really that's the heart and soul of what makes the piece work.
Exactly. God is in the details, they say.
Yes,
But they also say the
100%.
devil's in the details. And I don't really know the difference.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, well, Stephen, I could literally keep talking to you all day, but I don't want to take any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming on. If there's any projects you particularly want me to direct people to, that'll be down in the description below. Please check out Stephen. His work's amazing. He's a great human being. I love working with him. Uh, Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Quinn, thank you so much for having me and letting me like plug and listen to myself talking. It's so great chatting with you. I would actually love to do it again. And I've got a little half-cocked podcast. So I think we have to have
Definitely.
on our podcast. We only have a couple of episodes out, and we did it as actually a way to plug this anthology. But we had so much fun. We should have you. We should when you're down in LA. We should have you on the podcast.
I'd love to, man. Just anytime. Let me know.
So much fun, Quinn. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the show.
Thanks, man.